Horai through Asclepius. Horai, seasons. Closely allied to the Graces were the Horai, or seasons, who were also represented as three beautiful maidens, daughters of Zeus and Themis. Their names were Eunomia, Dice, and Irene. It may appear strange that these divinities, presiding over the seasons, should be but three in number, but this is quite in accordance with the notions of the ancient Greeks, who only recognized spring, summer, and autumn as seasons, nature being supposed to be wrapped in death or slumber during that cheerless and unproductive portion of the year which we call winter. In some parts of Greece there were but two Horai, Thallo, goddess of the bloom, and Carpo of the corn and fruit-bearing season. The Horai are always regarded as friendly towards mankind, and totally devoid of guile or subtlety. They are represented as joyous but gentle maidens, crowned with flowers, and holding each other by the hand in a round dance. When they are depicted separately, as personifications of the different seasons, the Hora, representing spring, appears laden with flowers. That of summer bears a sheaf of corn, whilst the personification of autumn has her hands filled with clusters of grapes and other fruits. They also appear in company with the Graces, in the train of Aphrodite, and are seen with Apollo and the Muses. They are inseparably connected with all that is good and beautiful in nature, and as the regular alternation of the seasons, like all her other operations, demands the most perfect order and regularity, the Horai, being the daughters of Themis, came to be regarded as the representatives of order, and the just administration of human affairs in civilized communities. Each of these graceful maidens took upon herself a separate function. Eunomia presided more especially over state life. Dice guarded the interests of individuals, whilst Irene, the gayest and brightest of the three sisters, was the light-hearted companion of Dionysus. The Horai were also the deities of the fast fleeting hours, and thus presided over the smaller as well as the larger divisions of time. In this capacity they assist every morning in yoking the celestial horses to the glorious chariot of the sun, which they again help to unyoke when he sinks to rest. In their original conception they were personifications of the clouds, and are described as opening and closing the gates of heaven, and causing fruits and flowers to spring forth when they pour down upon them their refreshing and life-giving streams. The Nymphs. The graceful beings called the Nymphs were the presiding deities of the woods, grottos, streams, meadows, etc. These divinities were supposed to be beautiful maidens of fairy-like form, and robed in more or less shadowy garments. They were held in the greatest veneration, though being minor divinities they had no temples dedicated to them, but were worshipped in caves or grottos, with libations of milk, honey, oil, etc. They may be divided into three distinct classes, viz. Water, mountain, and tree or wood nymphs. Water nymphs. Oceanides, Nereides, and Naiades. The worship of water deities is common to most primitive nations. The streams, springs, and fountains of a country bear the same relation to it which the blood coursing through the numberless arteries of a human being bears to the body. Both represent the living, moving, life-awakening element, without which existence would be impossible. Hence we find among most nations a deep feeling of attachment to the streams and waters of their native land, the remembrance of which, when absent in foreign climes, is always treasured with peculiar fondness. Thus among the early Greeks, each tribe came to regard the rivers and springs of its individual state as beneficent powers. which brought blessing and prosperity to the country. It is probable also that the charm which ever accompanies the sound of running water exercised its power over their imagination. They heard with delight the gentle whisper of the fountain, lulling the senses with its low rippling tones, the soft purling of the brook as it rushes over the pebbles, or the mighty voice of the waterfall as it dashes on its headlong course, and the beings which they pictured to themselves as presiding over all these charming sights and sounds of nature corresponded in their graceful appearance with the scenes with which they were associated. Oceanides. The Oceanides, or ocean nymphs, were the daughters of Oceanus and Tethys, and, like most sea divinities, were endowed with the gift of prophecy. They are personifications of those delicate vapour-like exhalations which, in warm climates, are emitted from the surface of the sea, more especially at sunset, and are impelled forwards by the evening breeze. They are accordingly represented as misty, shadowy beings, with graceful swaying forms, and robed in pale blue gauze-like fabrics. The Nereides. The Nereides were the daughters of Nereus and Doris, and were nymphs of the Mediterranean Sea. They are similar in appearance to the Oceanides, but their beauty is of a less shadowy order, and is more like that of mortals. They wear a flowing, pale green robe. Their liquid eyes resemble, in their clear depths, the lucid waters of the sea they inhabit. Their hair floats carelessly over their shoulders, and assumes the greenish tint of the water itself, which, far from deteriorating from their beauty, greatly adds to its effect. The Nereides either accompany the chariot of the mighty ruler of the sea, or follow in his train. They are told by the poets that the lonely mariner watches the Nereides with silent awe,